What I'm about to share with you is the most evil thing the Liberals have ever done, and that is saying a lot. We're talking about a party that deliberately ground our public schools down to the level of Kazakhstan's in order to give private schools heated pools. The party that knowingly legalised mass manslaughter in this country by weakening the safety laws on construction sites, has all but guaranteed a recession by turning housing in this country into an online poker game, except instead of stoners playing it, it's rich kids of Vaucluse parents that... Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, no, it's still just stoners. So I'm very well aware that the Liberals have done a lot of things that would make the devil himself think,
Mom, can you check if former Liberal President Richard Ashton is under the bed?
What's the matter? Scared of the boogeyman?
No!
but all of that pales in comparison as opposed to what they did in the last few months of 2018, which is sabotage the future. That's right. They're so evil they poison time itself. Wrap your head around that, stoners from Vaucluse. Fuck. Still reeling from the shade you threw my way. Then you proceed to weed me out. Let's walk through this step by step. For weeks now, the media has been parroting that Labor's response to the most dire threat humanity has ever faced is irrational, and their very rational reasoning for that is the irrational fantasies of one economist. Sane. One economist who not only works for fossil fuel companies, but I'm assuming works for fossil fuel companies in an alternate universe, because for his modelling to be this far off, it'd either have to be from a dimension where people who look like they're registered sex offenders run questioned vessels of knowledge, or he's just lying. But for legal reasons, it's my personal opinion that he's from Rapey-tron 7. Notice the double standard. When the Liberals spend, not want to spend, actually spend hundreds of billions of dollars. And this isn't maybe if you take some DMT, talk to a clockwork elf and stand on your head, he'll tell you that...
Yeah, it'll cost hundreds of billions of dollars, man, trust me.
This is in fact hundreds of billions of dollars, not spread across the economy, in the budget, in increased military spending. What is the media's response?
You can't question that. Some things are more important than money.
Only a truly mentally ill person would look at spending money on an actual threat as...
But a clockwork elf told me everything was going to be fine.
While spending way more money. We're essentially talking about $200 billion in increased spending on bear patrol. That's what our own white papers say. You can read them if you like, but the gist of it is, even if China wanted to invade us, which it doesn't, what are we going to do? Sick the bra boys on them? It's China. We may as well be planning for Independence Day. Even the people we pay to be worried about an invasion aren't worried about an invasion, which in turn worries me because somebody in the government must have read their own papers and still decided to spend a record-breaking amount of money on military hardware, and the media's response was... In political news, Liberals increased military spending from 1/5 of procurement spending to 3/4, aka the most it's ever been in history by a fucking mile, and... that's not really newsworthy, is it? This just in, Australia decides, is Bill Shorten batting out of his league? 81% say yes, 19% say undecided. Scared? Because it's about to get a whole lot scarier. Told ya! This record amount of military spending, which can best be described if you imagine Scott Morrison as your dad, and if you grew up in the suburbs of Australia, you don't have to imagine anything, it is your dad. Now, don't go in the garage. If you need batteries, tell me and I'll get them. And this Christmas, instead of getting you a Nintendo Switch, he got you a Game Boy. That's how lost he is. Helicopters, submarines, jeeps that might have been impressive to the A-team, but we're talking $200 million jets that could have been beaten by Tom Cruise, let alone drones that cost $20 million. That's right, for just one of these Tom Clancy wet dreams, our hypothetical enemy could have bought 10 of these things that win in every scenario ever. We might as well have put the money in those anti-dragon crossbows. This is why somebody who's clearly suffering from a midlife crisis shouldn't be running a country. But the other reason this party of so-called budget responsibility decided to blow $80 billion on what is essentially collectibles in the dying months of 2018 is that they realized they were dying. They realized they were going to lose this election, so they flipped the board game over. Party of adults. Think about the sheer malice behind those actions. They locked Australia into $80 billion defence contracts, which coincidentally is the exact same amount of money they ripped out of schools and hospitals, so the Australian Labor Party couldn't redirect that money back into schools and hospitals. As a result, mark my words, the Liberals will turn around in 3 years with an attack ad saying, "Oh look, the deficit's gone up. Typical Labor, spend, spend, spend. Remember us? Back in black. Now it's Sunday, bloody Sunday. The budget's redder than your mum's last tampon." Vote won the party of responsible budget managers who splurge all our money on sick retrojets. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the current governing party of Australia in all its malicious glory. a party that was elected by the people of this country with very low expectations to begin with. In fact, they only had one: clear the dead. They instead decided to clear the floor of their multinational arms dealer donors so they have room to supply the genocides they're currently fueling across the globe, all paid for by you, without your knowledge, in the span of 3 months. Talk about a credit card scam that's going around. In fact, speaking of credit cards, remember the Liberals' whole song and dance about budget responsibility? How does knowingly starving this nation of the capital that clearly wanted to invest in renewables, broadband, schools and hospitals on an attack ad that you have planned 3 years down the line that I'd normally describe as being cheap in rhetoric, but $200 billion ain't cheap? In fact, it's pretty much the only thing about these bought and sold puppets that isn't cheap, who are so cocksure of the protection provided by their syndicate of media barons that they were bragging about this grand scale money laundering, knowing that if the Labor Party said anything about it, the national conversation would switch to defence. Therefore, this $80 billion budgetary albatross that in true military industrial complex style is filled with explosives set to detonate at the next election has been draped around their neck that they have to wear in silence as the media ironically beats them for being irrational spendthrifts, as that's preferable to being pegged as weak on defence. That's the level of bias we're talking about. That's the reason the Liberals can keep stooping lower and lower and getting re-elected over and over, because the public isn't watching news. They're watching propaganda designed to keep a party in power that serves companies whose product is genocide. That's why you have to counter the narrative. That's why every time you encounter one of these Murdoch drones who ask, how is Labor going to pay for its climate policy? You counter by asking, how are the Liberals going to pay for their wicked hobby in military antiques?